A whirlwind affair leads to a shocking disappearance, but the chauffeur's unexpected return years later brings with it a life-altering secret. And if you cherish your family and love videos like this, subscribe to our channel to have 10 years of luck in your life. The chandelier's crystals cast dancing shadows across the marble floors of the Wellington estate as servants rushed to perfect the final details of the annual charity gala. Madison Wellington stood before her full-length mirror, adjusting the diamond necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. At 25, she embodied the sophistication expected of one of Boston's most prominent families, yet her reflection revealed a hint of rebellion in her emerald eyes. The tension with her parents had been building for weeks. They expected her to announce her engagement to Theodore Campbell III tonight, the merger their families had orchestrated since their prep school days. Madison had other plans. Her marketing degree from Harvard wasn't meant to gather dust while she played society wife. Miss Wellington? The head housekeeper's voice interrupted her thoughts. The first guests are arriving. Madison descended the grand staircase, her burgundy gown drawing appreciative glances. Her mother, Catherine Wellington, immediately appeared at her side, her perfectly manicured hand gripping Madison's arm with subtle force. "Theodore's family is here," Catherine whispered, steering her daughter toward the entrance. "Remember what we discussed?" Madison extracted herself from her mother's grasp, plastering on the society smile she'd perfected over years of such events. The ballroom filled quickly with Boston's elite, their jewelry and watches catching the light like stars in an indoor galaxy. That's when she first noticed him. The new chauffeur stood discreetly by the bar, serving champagne with a grace that seemed out of place for household staff. His dark eyes met hers for a brief moment, and Madison felt an unexpected jolt of electricity course through her. "Jordan," she heard one of the other staff members call him. He moved through the crowd with an easy confidence, his uniform perfectly tailored to his athletic frame. Throughout the evening, Madison found her gaze drawn to him repeatedly, and more often than not, he was already looking at her. The orchestra struck up a waltz, and Theodore appeared, claiming his obligatory dance. As they moved across the floor, Madison's attention remained divided, tracking Jordan's movements through the periphery of her vision. Theodore droned on about his latest business acquisition, but Madison barely heard him over the thundering of her own heart whenever Jordan passed nearby. Later, as the party reached its peak and the champagne flowed freely, Madison escaped to the conservatory. The glass walls offered a perfect view of the garden, illuminated by strategic lighting that made the fountains seem to glow from within. She heard footsteps behind her and turned, expecting to find her mother with another lecture about her duties to the family. Instead, Jordan stood in the doorway, holding a fresh glass of champagne. "I thought you might need this, Miss Wellington." His voice was deeper than she'd expected, with an undertone of something she couldn't quite place. Education, perhaps? He certainly didn't speak like the other staff members. "Thank you," she said, accepting the glass. Their fingers brushed, and that same electric current shot through her again. "You're new here. Started last week." He maintained a professional distance, but his eyes held hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "And already working our biggest event of the year?" Madison took a sip of champagne to steady herself. "That's quite a vote of confidence from the head of staff." Jordan's smile held a hint of mystery. "I can be very persuasive when necessary." The music from the ballroom drifted into the conservatory, muted by distance and glass. Madison found herself moving closer to him, drawn by something she couldn't explain. The professional distance between them evaporated with each step. "Dance with me," she whispered, surprising herself with her boldness. "That would be inappropriate, Miss Wellington." But he didn't step back. "I don't care about appropriate." Madison set down her champagne glass. "And please call me Madison." Their first kiss happened naturally, inevitably, like the meeting of tide and shore. His hands found her waist as hers traced the line of his jaw. The kiss deepened, and Madison felt years of societal expectations and family pressure melt away in the heat of their embrace. Neither of them noticed Catherine Wellington watching from the shadows of the hallway, her face a mask of cold fury as she witnessed her daughter's rebellion take an unexpected and, in her mind, disastrous turn. Madison stared at the third pregnancy test, her hands trembling as the second pink line appeared, just as clear as on the previous two. The marble countertop of her in-soot bathroom felt cold against her palms as she steadied herself. 6 weeks had passed since the gala, 6 weeks since Jordan had disappeared without a trace. The morning sickness had started 3 days ago. She'd blamed it on stress at first. The tension at home had become unbearable since the gala. Her mother barely spoke to her except to make cutting remarks about her inappropriate behavior, while her father buried himself in his newspaper, avoiding the conflict entirely. "This can't be happening," Madison whispered to her reflection. The perfectly curated world of the Wellingtons didn't allow for unmarried pregnancies, especially not with staff members. She reached for her phone, scrolling to Jordan's number. Like every other time she'd tried over the past weeks, the call went straight to voicemail. "Jordan, it's Madison. Again, we need to talk. It's important." She paused, fighting back tears. "Please." She'd already tried everything she could think of to find him. The head of staff claimed Jordan had resigned without notice, leaving only a brief letter. His apartment address on file turned out to be false. It was as if he'd vanished into thin air, taking with him the dreams of something real, something different from the suffocating world she'd grown up in. The sound of heels clicking on hardwood made Madison hurriedly sweep the pregnancy tests into the trash, covering them with tissues. Sarah Peterson, her best friend since boarding school, appeared in the doorway, her face etched with concern. "Your housekeeper let me in," Sarah said, taking in Madison's pale face and red-rimmed eyes. "I got your text. What's wrong?" Madison broke down, the wall she'd carefully maintained crumbling as Sarah wrapped her in a tight embrace. Through sobs, the story spilled out, the passionate weeks with Jordan, his sudden disappearance, and now the pregnancy. "Have you told your parents?" Sarah asked, already knowing the answer. Madison shook her head. "They'd make it disappear. You know how they are about the family reputation." She pulled away from Sarah, wiping her eyes. "I can't let them control this too. This is my life, my baby. What are you going to do?" The question hung in the air as Madison moved to her bedroom window, looking out over the manicured gardens where she'd last seen Jordan. The memory of his touch, his promises, his seeming sincerity, it all felt like a cruel joke now. "I'm keeping the baby," Madison said finally, her voice stronger than she felt. "And I'm done living under their thumb. I've been working on a business plan for months, something of my own away from the family company." Sarah studied her friend's face, seeing the determination replacing the despair. "The digital marketing agency you talked about?" Madison nodded. "I have my trust fund. It's not much by Wellington standards, but it's enough to start. I can't stay here, Sarah. I won't raise my child in this toxic environment." "You know this won't be easy," Sarah warned. "The rumors, the society gossip. Let them talk." Madison straightened her shoulders, a new resolve settling over her. "I'm tired of living my life for other people's approval. Jordan may have abandoned us, but I won't. This baby deserves better than that." Over the next few weeks, Madison threw herself into preparations. She found a small office space in Cambridge, far from the family's influence in Boston proper. Sarah introduced her to potential clients from her own network, carefully avoiding any connections to the Wellington sphere of influence. The morning she finally told her parents, the breakfast room temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. Catherine's teacup clattered against its saucer, while her father's newspaper lowered slowly, revealing eyes cold with disappointment. "You will not shame this family," Catherine declared, her voice razor-sharp. "I've already made arrangements with a discreet facility in Switzerland." "No." Madison stood, one hand protectively over her still flat stomach. "I'm moving out today. The movers are already packing my things." "If you do this," her father spoke for the first time, "you do it without our support. No connections, no influence, no money beyond your trust fund." Madison met his gaze steadily. "I understand." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "I used to think love was conditional in our world. Thank you for proving me right." As she walked out of the Wellington mansion that morning, Madison felt lighter despite the uncertainty ahead. Sarah waited in her car at the gates, ready to drive her friend to her new apartment. The pain of Jordan's betrayal still ached, but it had transformed into something else. A fierce determination to succeed, to build something of her own, to prove that she didn't need anyone else's approval or support. The Wellington heiress died that morning, but something stronger emerged from her ashes. A woman ready to face the world on her own terms, carrying within her the catalyst for her transformation and the promise of a different kind of future. 5 years had transformed Madison Wellington into Madison Wright, founder and CEO of Wright Digital Solutions. The corner office of her Cambridge headquarters offered a view of the Charles River, a daily reminder of the distance she'd put between herself and her past. Family photos lined her desk, all of them featuring her daughter Emma, none including the parents who hadn't spoken to her since she'd walked away. Madison adjusted her blazer, checking her reflection in the glass wall. At 30, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd built something from scratch. Her company had grown from a one-woman operation to a digital marketing powerhouse, with over 50 employees and a client list that made her former family connections unnecessary. "The board members are ready," Sarah announced, entering the office. As Chief Operating Officer, she'd been there from day one, turning down a partnership track at her law firm to join Madison's venture. "And you've got that look again." "What look?" "The one that says you're about to shake things up." Sarah handed her a tablet, displaying their quarterly reports. "Should I be worried?" Madison smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We need this acquisition. Thomson Tech has the AI development team we need to stay competitive, and their client base would push us into the international market." The boardroom fell silent as Madison entered. 5 years ago, such silence might have intimidated her. Now she owned it. The presentation screen behind her displayed projections that had taken months to perfect. "Ladies and gentlemen," Madison began, her voice steady, "we're at a crossroads. Digital marketing is evolving faster than ever. Either we evolve with it, or we become obsolete. For the next hour," she laid out her vision. The Thomson Tech acquisition would position Wright Digital Solutions as a pioneer in AI-driven marketing solutions. The numbers were ambitious, but achievable. Madison had learned to trust her instincts. They'd gotten her this far. As the board members filed out, muttering among themselves, Sarah lingered behind. "There's something else you should know." She waited until they were alone. "Warwick Ventures is interested in buying a significant stake in the company." Madison froze. Warwick Ventures had a reputation for hostile takeovers disguised as investments. "Who approached you?" "Their VP of acquisitions." He was persistent. Sarah hesitated. "Madison, their offer is substantial, well above market value, which means they're desperate to get in before the Thomson deal goes through." Madison moved to the window, watching boats cut through the river below. "What did your contacts say about them?" "Nothing good. 3 companies they've invested in over the past 2 years have mysteriously lost their founding CEOs within months of the deal closing." Sarah stepped closer. "They're known for inserting their own management team once they gain board seats." Madison felt a familiar tension headache building. Emma had a dance recital tonight. She'd promised not to miss it. Her daughter had inherited her determination and Jordan's grace, a combination that both delighted and pained her. "Run a full background check on their executive team," Madison decided. "I want to know everything, where they came from, their investment patterns, any whispers of illegal practices." "Already on it." Sarah paused at the door. "Madison, you haven't checked your personal email today, have you?" "No, why?" "Your mother sent a message to your old account. Your father's sick. Cancer." Sarah's voice softened. "She's asking you to come home." The news hit like a physical blow, but Madison kept her expression neutral. "Forward it to my assistant. I'll look at it later." Once alone, Madison allowed herself a moment of weakness, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. The empire she'd built felt suddenly fragile, threatened by forces she couldn't fully see. The timing of Warwick's interest and her mother's message couldn't be coincidental. She'd learned long ago that nothing in the business world was. Her phone buzzed, a text from Emma's nanny reminding her of the recital time. Madison straightened, pushing personal concerns aside. She'd learned to compartmentalize, to keep her work separate from her life with Emma. Her daughter deserved a mother who was present, who didn't carry the weight of business decisions into their time together. Yet as she gathered her things to leave, Madison couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Her instincts, the same ones that had driven her success, were screaming that Warwick's interest was more than a simple investment opportunity. Ms. Wright, her assistant, appeared at the door. Mr. Thompson from Warwick Ventures is in the lobby. He says he has a proposal that can't wait. Madison checked her watch. She had 45 minutes until Emma's recital. Tell him I have a prior commitment. Schedule him for tomorrow morning. As she rode the elevator down, choosing a different exit to avoid the lobby, Madison realized she'd been holding her breath. Success had taught her that vulnerability was a luxury she couldn't afford. She'd built her company the same way she'd rebuilt her life after Jordan, one calculated decision at a time. What she didn't know was that the next 24 hours would force her to confront every decision she'd made, starting with the one she'd tried hardest to forget. The Warwick Ventures conference room felt too warm, despite the aggressive air conditioning. Madison sat at the head of the table, reviewing the acquisition proposal when the door opened. Her coffee cup froze halfway to her lip. As Jordan Mitchell walked in, wearing an expertly tailored suit and carrying a leather portfolio. 5 years had added subtle touches of gray at his temples, but otherwise, he looked exactly as she remembered. The same dark eyes that had once made her forget everything she'd been taught about class barriers. The same confident stride that had made her believe in impossible things. Ms. Wright, he said formally, as if they were strangers, as if he hadn't disappeared the morning after promising to love her forever. I'm Jordan Mitchell, Senior Investment Advisor for Warwick Ventures. Madison felt Sarah tense beside her, recognition dawning. The room's other occupants, lawyers and executives from both companies, faded into background noise as Madison forced herself to breathe normally. Mr. Mitchell. Her voice remained steady, years of boardroom battles serving her well. This is unexpected. I've been following your company's growth with interest. Jordan took a seat directly across from her, his expression professionally neutral. Wright Digital Solutions represents exactly the kind of innovation Warwick wants to invest in. The meeting proceeded with excruciating formality. Jordan presented projections and strategies, his voice never wavering. Madison matched his tone, discussing profit margins and market expansion while her heart hammered against her ribs. Only Sarah knew the effort it cost her to maintain composure. 2 hours later, as the room cleared, Jordan lingered. Sarah shot Madison a questioning look, but Madison nodded slightly. She needed this confrontation. When they were alone, the carefully maintained facade cracked. 5 years, Madison said, her voice low and dangerous. You disappeared for 5 years, and now you walk in here like we're talking about the weather? Jordan's professional mask slipped. Madison, I can explain. Explain? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Explain how you vanished without a word? How you left me alone when I was... She stopped herself. He didn't deserve to know about Emma. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I didn't have a choice. Jordan moved closer, but Madison held up a hand to stop him. Your father, don't. Madison's voice cracked. Don't you dare blame my father for your cowardice. He threatened to destroy my family's business. Jordan's words rushed out. The garage my father spent 30 years building. One phone call from Richard Wellington, and all our loans would have been called in immediately. Madison felt the floor shift under her feet. What are you talking about? Your father came to me the morning after the gala. He had proof that my father had taken loans from some questionable sources years ago when my mother was sick. One word from him, and not only would the garage have gone under, but my father would have faced criminal charges. The pieces started falling into place. Her father's smug satisfaction in the weeks after Jordan's disappearance, her mother's insistence that she dodged a bullet. Why are you really here, Jordan? Madison asked, suddenly tired. Why now? Because Warwick isn't what they seem. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I've been tracking their operations for years. They're connected to the same loan sharks that almost destroyed my family. They're not interested in innovation. They want to use your company's AI development to hide their money laundering operations. Madison's mind raced. You're working undercover? Jordan nodded. FBI's Financial Crimes Division. We've been building a case, but we need solid proof. when I saw your company was their next target." He trailed off. "I had to warn you." A knock at the door made them both jump. Emma's nanny appeared, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry, Ms. Wright, but Emma insisted on seeing where you work." Before either adult could react, a small figure darted past the nanny. Emma, still in her ballet costume from her morning G-class, stopped short at the sight of Jordan. The resemblance was unmistakable. The same dark eyes, the same curious tilt of the head. Jordan's face drained of color as he looked from Emma to Madison. "She's your daughter," Madison finished, her voice barely a whisper. "The one you never knew about because you disappeared." Emma, sensing the tension, pressed herself against Madison's leg. "Mommy? Who is he?" The question hung in the air like smoke, choking them both with its implications. Jordan took an unsteady step forward, then stopped, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. "I think," Madison said carefully, gathering Emma into her arms, "that we need to have a much longer conversation. But not here. Not now." Jordan nodded, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. "Madison, if I had known, you would have what?" she challenged. "Stayed? Fought back against my father? We'll never know, will we?" She turned to leave, then paused. "I have a company to protect and a daughter to think about. Whatever your investigation uncovers, remember that." As she carried Emma out, Madison felt the weight of Jordan's gaze following them. 5 years of carefully constructed walls had crumbled in minutes, leaving her with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear. The past she'd tried so hard to leave behind had finally caught up with her. Madison sat on the edge of Emma's bed, watching her daughter arrange her stuffed animals with methodical precision. The same way Jordan used to organize his tools, she thought, then pushed the memory aside. After yesterday's encounter, Emma hadn't stopped asking questions about the man in the office. Madison had delayed the inevitable conversation, but now, watching her daughter's familiar, determined expression, she knew it was time. "Emma, sweetheart," Madison began, patting the space beside her. "Remember how you asked about the man from my office?" Emma climbed up, clutching her favorite elephant. "The one who looked like me? Sally at school says I don't look like you, Mommy. She says I must look like my daddy." Madison's throat tightened. "Sally's right. You do look like your daddy. That man, that was him. His name is Jordan." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? Why hasn't he visited before? Doesn't he like us?" The innocent questions felt like daggers. "It's complicated, baby. Jordan, your daddy. He had to go away before I even knew you were growing in my tummy. He didn't know about you until yesterday." Is that why he looked so surprised? Emma's perceptiveness, another trait inherited from Jordan, never failed to catch Madison off guard. Before Madison could respond, her phone buzzed. Sarah's name flashed on the screen, marked urgent. She was about to silence it when a second message appeared. "Turn on the news now." "Just a minute, sweetie." Madison reached for the remote, switching on Emma's bedroom TV and finding a news channel. Her heart stopped. Splashed across the screen was a photo of Wright Digital Solutions headquarters, alongside breaking news headlines. "Tech company under federal investigation." The reporter's voice filled the room. Sources claim Wright Digital Solutions' recent AI developments may be linked to an international money laundering scheme. "Emma, I need you to play in your room for a few minutes while I talk to Aunt Sarah, okay?" Madison's voice remained calm despite the panic rising in her chest. She stepped into the hallway, already dialing. "Tell me you're seeing this," Sarah said without preamble. "How bad?" "Bad. Our stock is plummeting. Thompson Tech just pulled out of acquisition talks. 3 major clients have already called to terminate their contracts." Madison pressed her forehead against the wall. "Jordan warned me about Warwick yesterday. Said they were using AI companies to hide illegal money movements. But this feels like something else." "Madison," Sarah hesitated. "There's more. Someone leaked emails suggesting you knew about the money laundering. They're doctored, obviously, but they look convincing. The pieces click together. My father. This has to be him. The timing's too perfect. Jordan shows up with warnings about Warwick, and suddenly we're being framed." She laughed bitterly. "He's still pulling strings. What do we do?" Before Madison could answer, another call came through, a number she didn't recognize. "Sarah, I'll call you back. Ms. Wright, a smooth, unfamiliar voice spoke. This is Gerald Warwick. I believe we should discuss how to handle this unfortunate situation. I'm prepared to offer you a very generous buyout package, given the circumstances. Your reputation might survive if you step down quietly. Madison's grip tightened on the phone. Mr. Warwick, are you threatening me? Threatening? No. Offering you a lifeline. Your daughter's trust fund could be affected by all this negative publicity. It would be a shame if Emma's future were compromised by her mother's poor choices. The mention of Emma's name sent ice through Madison's veins. How do you know my daughter's name? I'm making my business to know everything about potential investments. You have 1 hour to accept our offer. After that, well, you let the implications hang in the air. Madison ended the call, her mind racing. Through Emma's door, she could hear her daughter humming to herself, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering around them. The same tune Jordan used to whistle while working in the garage. Her phone buzzed again, Jordan this time. She answered without hesitation. They're moving faster than we anticipated, he said without preamble. Madison, I need you to trust me. Can you get Emma somewhere safe? Sarah's lake house. No one knows about it. Good. Pack for a few days. I'll have an agent escort you. And Madison? I know I have no right to ask for your trust, but right now, it's not just about us. Madison looked at Emma's door again. I know. Jordan, if anything happens to her, it won't, he promised, his voice carrying the same intensity she remembered from years ago. I lost 5 years with her. I won't lose another day. After ending the call, Madison took a deep breath and returned to Emma's room. Her daughter looked up, still clutching her elephant. Mommy, are we in trouble? Madison sat down, pulling Emma close. No, baby, but we're going on a little adventure. How would you like to visit Aunt Sarah's lake house? As she helped Emma pack, choosing favorite toys and comfortable clothes, Madison's mind whirled with contingency plans. She'd built her company from nothing once before. She could do it again if necessary. But first, she had to protect her daughter and figure out exactly how deep this conspiracy went. What she didn't know was that across town, Jordan was already putting his own plan into motion. One that would either save everything Madison had built or destroy what little trust remained between them. Sarah's lake house sat at the end of a private road, surrounded by dense pine forest. Madison watched from the window as 2 FBI agents patrolled the perimeter, their presence both reassuring and unsettling. Emma slept upstairs, exhausted from their hasty departure. The sound of tires on gravel made Madison tense, but she recognized Jordan's silhouette in the approaching car. He entered without knocking, carrying a laptop and several files. The past 24 hours had aged him. His shirt was wrinkled, dark circles shadowed his eyes. The agent swept the house for bugs, he said, setting up his equipment on the dining table. We're secure here. Madison wrapped her arms around herself, maintaining distance. Tell me what we're dealing with. Your father's involved, but he's not the mastermind. Jordan pulled up a complex diagram on his laptop. Richard Wellington is just another player in Gerald Warwick's game. We've been tracking Warwick's organization for years. Money laundering, corporate espionage, blackmail. Your father got involved back when he needed to hide certain investments during the 2008 crash. And the threats against your family? Was that real, or just another convenient excuse? Jordan met her gaze. It was real. Your father was Warwick's enforcer long before he targeted me. But I should have found another way. I should have told you. Yes, you should have. Madison moved closer to examine the diagram. But that's not what matters now. What does Warwick want with my company? Your AI algorithms. Jordan pulled up Wright Digital's latest project specifications. You've developed something they need, the ability to process and categorize massive amounts of financial data in seconds. Perfect for hiding illegal transactions. Those algorithms took years to develop. My team is being watched, Jordan finished. Which is why we had to get you out. Warwick doesn't just want your company. He wants control of the technology. The smear campaign is just phase 1. Madison sank into a chair. And phase 2. Usually, accidents start happening. Key employees resign suddenly. Financial records get lost. Eventually, the target company becomes worthless, except for its intellectual property, which Warwick buys for pennies on the dollar. A floorboard creaked upstairs. Both adults froze, but Emma's footsteps moved away from the stairs. Madison lowered her voice. How do we stop them? Jordan hesitated. I have a plan, but you're not going to like it. Try me. We let them think they're winning. He leaned forward, eyes intense. You publicly step back from the company, citing the investigation. I position myself as Warwick's inside man at Right Digital. Meanwhile, we gather evidence of their entire operation. You want me to give up my company? Madison's voice rose sharply before she caught herself, glancing upstairs. Not give up. Sacrifice a piece to win the game. Jordan pulled up another file. Your father may be working with Warwick, but he's also kept records. Insurance in case Warwick ever turned on him. We find those records. We can prove the allegations are false and expose their entire operation. Madison finished, her strategic mind already racing ahead. But my father would never give up those records willingly. No, Jordan agreed. But your mother might. Madison stared at him. My mother? She hasn't spoken to me in 5 years. She reached out about your father's cancer, didn't she? That timing wasn't coincidental. Catherine Wellington may present herself as the perfect society wife, but she's not blind. She's been gathering her own insurance against both your father and Warwick. A memory surfaced. Her mother's habit of documenting everything, keeping meticulous records hidden in her personal safe. The same safe Madison had once known the combination to. Even if you're right, Madison said slowly, we need access to the mansion. The safe is in her private sitting room. The annual charity gala is next week. Jordan's eyes held a familiar glint. Your mother's pet project. Society's biggest event of the year. Where anyone will be in attendance, Madison finished. Including Gerald Warwick. Exactly. While all eyes are on you making your prodigal daughter return. You can access the safe. Madison stood, pacing. But there's a problem. Emma, I won't leave her. Sarah can take her to Canada. I have contacts there, safe houses where Warwick can't reach them. As if summoned by her name, Emma appeared in the doorway, clutching her elephant. Mommy, I'm hungry. Jordan's expression softened as he looked at their daughter. Emma, still half asleep, studied him with curious eyes. Are you really my daddy? She asked suddenly. The question hung in the air. Jordan looked at Madison, seeking permission. At her. Slight nod. He knelt to Emma's level. Yes, I am. His voice was gentle. And I know I've missed a lot, but I'd like to help keep you and your mommy safe now, if you'll let me. Emma considered this with 5-year-old gravity. Do you know how to make pancakes? A genuine smile crossed Jordan's face. As a matter of fact, I do. Madison watched them move to the kitchen, Jordan lifting Emma onto a counter while gathering ingredients. The domestic scene felt like a glimpse into an alternate reality, one where Jordan had never left, where they'd been a real family. But reality crashed back as her phone buzzed with news alerts about her company's falling stock prices. They had 1 week to prepare for the gala, to perfect their plan. One chance to save everything she'd built and protect Emma's future. The stakes had never been higher, and the line between ally and enemy had never been thinner. The Wellington mansion loomed before them, its windows blazing with light for the gala. Madison sat in Jordan's surveillance van, adjusting her evening gown, midnight blue, deliberately chosen to stand out among the pastels favored by the society crowd. Through the tinted windows, she watched Boston's elite arrive in their luxury vehicles. Comms check. Jordan's voice came through her nearly invisible earpiece. He sat beside her, already in his server's uniform. Sarah, do you copy? Clear on my end, Sarah responded from her position inside. She'd arrived early as a member of the planning committee. Warwick just arrived with his entourage. Your father's in his study, Madison. Your mother's greeting guests. Madison touched the diamond pendant at her throat, a subtle camera feeding video back to the FBI team. Remember, we need 30 minutes once the diversion starts. Any longer, and someone might notice Jordan's missing from the service staff. You're sure about this? Jordan asked quietly, his hand brushing hers. The past week of planning, of late nights strategizing while Emma slept upstairs at the lake house, had worn away some of their defenses. Once you walk in there, my reputation's already in shreds, Madison replied. At least this way, we control the narrative. She checked her lipstick in the rearview mirror. Besides, what better way to distract Boston society than the prodigal daughter's dramatic return? Jordan caught her arm as she reached for the door. Madison, about Emma. She's safe. The FBI team confirmed they reached the safe house in Vancouver an hour ago. Her voice softened. Sarah's sister will take good care of her. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Jordan released her arm. Showtime. Madison's entrance into the gala created exactly the stir they'd hoped for. Conversation stuttered to a halt as she crossed the marble foyer. Her mother, greeting a couple near the grand staircase, nearly dropped her champagne glass. Madison. Catherine Wellington's voice carried across the sudden silence. This is unexpected. Mother. Madison kissed her cheek, feeling the older woman's tension. I heard about Father's condition. Families should be together at times like these, shouldn't we? Before Catherine could respond, Gerald Warwick materialized beside them. In person, he radiated the same predatory energy as his voice on the phone. Ms. Wright, how brave of you to show your face, given the circumstances. Mr. Warwick. Madison met his gaze steadily. I wasn't aware that unproven allegations should keep me from my family obligations. Allegations seem to be piling up, though, aren't they? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Your company's stock has dropped another 15% since this morning. Shame about those client contracts. Through her earpiece, Jordan's voice was tight. He's baiting you. Stay focused. Madison forced a smile. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private? I'd hate to bore everyone with BU. Sinus talk. The conservatory? Warwick suggested, exactly as they'd planned. The room's security cameras had conveniently malfunctioned an hour ago. As Madison led Warwick away, she caught sight of Jordan moving efficiently through the crowd with a drinks tray. Their timing had to be perfect. The conservatory looked exactly as it had 5 years ago, when she and Jordan had first kissed. Warwick closed the doors behind them. Let's dispense with the pleasantries, he said. Your company is finished. The only question is whether you walk away with something or nothing. And if I don't want to walk away at all? Warwick's facade cracked slightly. Don't be foolish. Your father understood the natural order of things. Know when you're beaten, take the money, and disappear. Your daughter needn't be affected by your poor decisions. The mention of Emma made Madison's blood boil, but she kept her expression neutral. In her ear, Sarah reported, Your mother just left the ballroom. Jordan's moving into position. You seem very interested in my daughter, Mr. Warwick. Madison moved closer to the windows, drawing his attention away from the doors. One might almost think she was the real target all along. Warwick stilled. I don't know what you mean. No. Madison turned to face him. Not even how convenient it was that Jordan Mitchell happened to work for you? That my father knew exactly how to make him disappear 5 years ago? Almost as if someone wanted to make sure any grandchild of Richard Wellington grew up under the right influences. You're reaching, Ms. Wright. But uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Am I? My father's cancer diagnosis, my mother's sudden olive branch, your company's interest in my AI technology. It all leads back to control, doesn't it? Control of the Wellington fortune, control of the next generation. Through her earpiece, Jordan whispered, We're in. Your mother's cooperating. Keep him talking. Warwick moved suddenly, gripping Madison's arm. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Your father and I built something bigger than your little tech company. The money, the connections. Did you really think you could just walk away from your heritage? Actually, Madison smiled. I did. She nodded toward the security camera in the corner, the one that hadn't really malfunctioned. And you just admitted to everything we needed. The conservatory doors burst open. FBI agents poured in, led by Jordan, no longer in his server's uniform, but wearing a tactical vest with FBI emblazoned across it. Gerald Warwick, Jordan announced, you're under arrest for conspiracy, extortion, and financial fraud. As the agents led Warwick away, Madison saw her mother standing in the doorway, holding a thick folder of documents. Catherine's eyes met her daughter's, years of unspoken words passing between them. "The safe," Catherine said quietly. "I've been adding to it for years. Everything your father and Warwick did, every transaction, every threat. I couldn't stop it then, but I could document it. For you. For Emma." Madison felt Jordan's presence beside her, solid and reassuring. "It's over," he murmured. But as she watched Warwick being led through the shocked crowd of Boston's finest, Madison knew it wasn't over. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where all the shadows would finally come to light. The aftermath of Warwick's arrest turned the Wellington mansion into a circus of FBI agents, society gossip, and media speculation. Madison stood in her father's study, now stripped of its pretense by federal investigators cataloging evidence. Jordan entered, closing the door against the chaos outside. "Emma's flight just landed in Boston," he said. "Sarah's sister is bringing her to the office." Madison nodded, running her fingers along her father's mahogany desk. "How much does she know about what happened?" "Just that the bad people are gone and it's safe to come home." Jordan hesitated. "Madison, we need to talk about—" A commotion outside interrupted him. Through the study's open window came Emma's voice, clear and excited. "Mommy! Daddy!" They rushed outside to find Emma breaking away from Sarah's sister, running across the mansion's front lawn. The girl's dark curls bounced as she launched herself into Madison's arms. But what happened next caught everyone off guard. Emma reached for Jordan too, pulling him into their embrace. "I saw you on TV!" Emma exclaimed. "You were wearing a police vest like in my superhero movies." Jordan's arms encircled them both, and for a moment, Madison allowed herself to lean into the fantasy of family. Then reality crashed back as Catherine Wellington appeared on the front steps. "Emma," Catherine called softly. "Is that my granddaughter?" Emma turned, suddenly shy, pressing closer to Madison. "Who's that?" "That's your grandmother," Madison explained, her voice carefully neutral. "Would you like to meet her?" But Emma's attention had already shifted. "Is this where you grew up, Mommy?" "It's like a castle." Her eyes widened at the fountain, the manicured gardens. "Can I explore? Why don't I show you around?" Jordan offered, reading the tension between Madison and her mother. "I know all the best hiding spots." As Jordan led Emma toward the gardens, telling her about the time he'd accidentally driven a golf cart into the fountain, Madison faced her mother. "She looks just like you did at that age," Catherine said. "Except for her eyes. Those are his." "Why didn't you tell me?" Madison demanded. "About Warwick, about what father was involved in. You kept records for years, but said nothing. Would you have believed me?" Catherine's carefully maintained facade cracked. "You were so determined to prove your independence. And after what your father did to Jordan's family, I couldn't risk Warwick turning his attention to Emma. So you pushed me away instead? Let me think you'd abandoned me. I pushed you toward building something of your own, something they couldn't touch." Catherine's hands twisted her pearl necklace. "Every time your company succeeded, every headline about the brilliant Madison Wright, I knew you were safer. Success is the best revenge in our world." A shriek of laughter drew their attention to the gardens, where Jordan was teaching Emma how to make the fountain spray higher by adjusting the controls. The sight of them together made Madison's chest ache. "He loves her already," Catherine observed. "He's had a week to play dad," Madison said sharply. 5 years of absence doesn't disappear because he helped take down Warwick. "No, but 5 years of protecting her does." At Madison's confused look, Catherine continued. "Why do you think Warwick never moved against you directly?" Jordan's been feeding the FBI information about anyone who showed too much interest in Wright Digital Solutions. He couldn't be in Emma's life, but he made sure Warwick couldn't hurt either of you. Madison watched Jordan lift Emma onto his shoulders, pointing out something in the trees. "He could have told me. Like you could have told him about the pregnancy?" Catherine's voice was gentle but firm. "You both made choices thinking you were protecting each other. The question is, what choices will you make now?" Before Madison could respond, Emma came running back, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Mommy, Daddy found a treehouse. Can we fix it up? He says he's good at building things." Jordan followed at a more sedate pace, leaves in his hair suggesting he'd already been recruited into treehouse exploration. I thought maybe, he started, then seemed to lose confidence. If it's okay with your mom, I could teach you how to make it even better. Emma turned pleading eyes to Madison. Please? Daddy says we can make a rope ladder and a secret password and everything. Madison felt the weight of multiple gazes. Emma's hopeful, Jordan's uncertain, Catherine's knowing. The past week had shown her a different side of Jordan, one that aligned more with her memories of their time together than with the pain of his abandonment. She'd watched him with Emma at the lake house, patient and gentle, never pushing for more than their daughter was ready to give. We could start this weekend, Madison found herself saying. But first, we all need to have a serious talk about everything that's happened. About our family. Emma's face scrunched in concentration. Can we have the talk with hot chocolate? Sarah says hard talks are better with hot chocolate. Smart girl, Jordan smiled. Gets that from her mother. For the first time in years, Madison felt the walls around her heart begin to crack. The path forward wasn't clear, but maybe it didn't need to be. Sometimes, as she'd learned building her company, you had to trust your instincts and take the first step without seeing the whole staircase. Hot chocolate it is, she agreed. And Emma, maybe your grandmother would like to join us. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But as Emma grabbed both Catherine's and Jordan's hands, dragging them toward the house while chattering about marshmallows, Madison realized it might be something even more important. A beginning. The kitchen of Madison's penthouse apartment felt different at midnight. Emma had finally fallen asleep after insisting on showing Jordan every drawing she'd ever made, every trophy from her dance recitals, every treasured stuffed animal with its own detailed backstory. Now, Madison sat across from Jordan at her kitchen island, 2 untouched cups of coffee between them. She keeps your photo by her bed, Madison said quietly. The one from the newspaper article about Right Digital's launch. She found it in my office when she was 3 and decided that must be her daddy because he had her eyes. Jordan's hands tightened around his coffee cup. I had photos too. Security footage from every public event you attended. Emma's first day of preschool. The Christmas pageant last year. He met her gaze. I told myself I was just monitoring potential threats, but you were being a stalker? The words came out sharper than intended. I deserved that. He pushed away from the counter, pacing. I convinced myself I was protecting you both by staying away. The FBI needed someone inside Warwick's organization, and my background in finance made me the perfect candidate. Every time I wanted to reach out, to explain, I'd remember what your father said about my family's garage. The garage you saved anyway. At his surprised look, Madison continued, I did my research after the arrest. Your parents' garage is now Mitchell & Sons Auto Group, with 6 locations across New England. Quite the expansion for a business that was supposedly on the brink of collapse. Jordan had the grace to look ashamed. I used my position with Warwick to funnel legitimate investments their way. Clean money, legal contracts. I told myself it made up for lying to them about working for the FBI. And lying to me? Nothing makes up for that. He turned to face her fully. I should have trusted you. Should have found a way to tell you about the investigation, about your father's threats. Instead, I convinced myself that complete separation was the only way to keep you safe. Madison's phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Warwick's asking to make a deal. Says he has one last card to play. FBI wants you both at the office first thing. Always something, Madison muttered, showing Jordan the message. He's desperate, Jordan analyzed. His entire network is unraveling. Accounts frozen, associates turning evidence. Your mother's documents exposing decades of corruption. Which makes him dangerous. Madison stood, moving to her windows overlooking the city. He threatened Emma before. What if he won't get near her? Jordan's voice carried the same fierce protection she felt. The FBI has agents watching the building, and your security system rivals the Pentagon's. Our daughter spent the first 5 years of her life without a father because of men like Warwick. Madison turned back to him. I won't let her spend the next 5 looking over her shoulder. The use of our daughter wasn't lost on Jordan. He moved closer, close enough that Madison could smell the familiar cologne he still wore. We could leave. The FBI can handle the rest of the investigation. Take Emma somewhere safe until it's over. Run away? That's your solution? But there was no bite in her words. Jordan, I've spent 5 years building something I'm proud of. Something I want Emma to be proud of. I know. His hand found hers, tentative. Your company isn't just successful. It's changing lives. The AI development program for children's hospitals, the scholarship foundation for single parents, you've built something extraordinary. Madison looked at their joined hands. I was so angry for so long. At you, at my parents, at myself. Every success felt like vindication, proving I didn't need any of you. She squeezed his hand. But watching you with Emma this week, seeing how naturally you fit into her life, it made me question everything I thought I knew about forgiveness. I don't deserve forgiveness, Jordan said quietly. But Emma deserves a father. If you'll let me, I want to be there for every moment I've missed. Dance recitals, school plays, scraped knees, all of it. And what about us? Madison asked the question that had hung between them all week. Before Jordan could answer, both their phones buzzed simultaneously. Sarah had sent a file, security footage from Wright Digital's parking garage. The timestamp showed Warwick being escorted to a federal vehicle after his arrest. As he passed the camera, he looked directly into it and smiled. He knew, Jordan realized. He knew he'd be caught eventually. This was never just about your company or the money laundering. No, Madison agreed, a chill running down her spine. This was about destroying the Wellington legacy. My father's reputation, my company's integrity, our family's future. He wanted to take it all. Then let's give him one last surprise. Jordan pulled her closer. You asked about us. The truth is, I never stopped loving you, Madison. 5 years of watching you from a distance, seeing you build an empire, raise our daughter. You're even more extraordinary than I remembered. Madison felt tears threatening. Love isn't enough. Trust has to be rebuilt. Emma has to come first. Then we'll rebuild it. Together. Starting with taking down Warwick once and for all. He touched her cheek gently. What do you say? Partners? The word carried weight beyond its simple meaning. Partners in business, in parenting, in whatever future they might forge together. Madison leaned into his touch. Partners, she agreed. But Jordan, if you ever disappear on us again, never. His voice carried the weight of a vow. Whatever Warwick's final play is, we face it as a family. As if on cue, Emma's voice called from her bedroom. Mommy? Daddy? I had a bad dream. They shared a look, years of separation dissolving in the simple domestic moment. Whatever tomorrow brought, Warwick's threats, business challenges, family complications. Tonight, they were just parents, comforting their daughter together for the first time. The Wright Digital Solutions boardroom crackled with tension. Madison sat at the head of the table, Jordan and Sarah flanking her, while FBI agents positioned themselves strategically around the room. On the screen, Gerald Warwick appeared via secure video link from federal custody, his usual polished appearance now disheveled. Before we begin, Warwick's lawyer interjected, my client's information comes with conditions. Full immunity and your client lost high. As negotiating power when we found his offshore accounts, Jordan cut in. The evidence from Catherine Wellington's files alone guarantees 20 years. Warwick leaned forward, his image filling the screen. You think Catherine's files are the whole story? Richard Wellington and I built our empire on bigger secrets than corporate fraud. Madison, your father, is dying of cancer in his study, Madison finished. Whatever leverage you think you have over him is worthless now. Cancer? Warwick's laugh held no humor. Is that what Catherine told you? Your father isn't dying, he's running. The cancer story was his exit strategy, planned months ago when he realized I was losing control. He's probably halfway to a non-extradition country by now. Madison felt Jordan tense beside her. Sarah was already on her phone, coordinating with FBI teams. But Madison kept her eyes on Warwick. Watching for the tell she'd learned to recognize in countless business negotiations. The slight twitch at the corner of his mouth that signaled a bluff. It didn't come. Richard Wellington orchestrated everything, Warwick continued. Jordan's harassment, the threats to his family's business. It wasn't about protecting the Wellington name. It was about controlling the next generation. Your father knew about your pregnancy before you did, Madison. Hospital records, private investigators. He was going to use the child to force you into line. I simply provided the means. And what did you get in return? Jordan demanded. Access. Influence. The Wellington connection opened doors that money couldn't. But Richard got greedy. Started moving assets without consulting me. The AI technology was supposed to be mine. Madison's phone buzzed a message from her mother. He's gone. Private airstrip. I'm so sorry. You're enjoying this, Madison realized, studying Warwick's expression. You wanted us to know my father betrayed everyone. This is your revenge. Smart girl. Always were. Warwick sat back. Richard Wellington used me, used his own daughter, tried to steal my technology. So yes, I made sure when I went down he'd have nowhere to hide. Every account, every transaction, every dirty deal, it's all in a file being delivered to Interpol right now. The boardroom door burst open. Catherine Wellington strode in, holding a tablet. It's done. I've transferred everything to the FBI. All of it, Richard's entire network. Warwick's eyes widened. You were working with her? My mother's been working with the FBI longer than you have, Jordan, Madison said quietly. Haven't you, Mom? Catherine nodded. 15 years of documenting everything. I couldn't stop Richard, but I could make sure he didn't destroy our family's real legacy. She turned to Warwick. You and Richard were so busy watching for threats from the outside. You never considered the enemy was already inside. Federal agents have your husband in custody, Mrs. Wellington, an FBI agent announced. Arrested at the airstrip. Madison felt Jordan's hand find hers under the table as Warwick's face contorted with fury. This isn't over. The Wellington name is still toxic. Your company, Right Digital Solutions, Madison corrected. And our stock rose 12 points this morning. Turns out, the market responds well to a CEO who helps take down a criminal enterprise. As for the Wellington name, Catherine added, it died the moment you and Richard tried to use my granddaughter as a pawn. The future belongs to the Wright family now. The FBI terminated the video link, leaving Warwick's frozen expression of defeat on the screen. In the silence that followed, Madison felt the weight of the past 5 years lifting. Mom, she turned to Catherine. Thank you for everything. I failed you once, Catherine said softly. When your father forced Jordan away. I won't fail Emma. A commotion outside the boardroom drew their attention. Emma's voice car. IED through the doors. But I want to see if they caught the bad guys. Jordan chuckled. Definitely your daughter. Never misses the action. The doors opened to reveal Emma, escorted by Sarah's sister, clutching her ever-present elephant. She surveyed the room of serious adults with 5-year-old gravity. Did we win? She asked. Madison lifted her onto her lap. Yes, baby. We won. So, no more bad dreams? No more hiding. No more hiding, Jordan confirmed, wrapping an arm around them both. Sarah cleared her throat. The press is waiting downstairs. They'll want a statement. Madison looked at her assembled family. Her mother, finally free of decades of secrets. Jordan, the love she'd lost and found again. And Emma, the miracle who had given her the strength to build something greater than the Wellington legacy. Let them wait, she decided. I believe someone promised to help build a treehouse this weekend. Emma bounced excitedly. Can Grandma help too? Catherine's eyes filled with tears at the simple acceptance. I'd love to, darling. As the boardroom emptied, leaving just the 4 of them, Madison realized that some shadows, when finally brought to light, reveal unexpected blessings. Her father had tried to control the next generation, but in doing so, he'd inadvertently created something stronger. A family bound not by obligation or fear, but by choice and love. Ready to go home? Jordan asked softly. Madison looked at her daughter, safe in the circle of their arms, and her mother, standing proud and free for the first time in decades. We are home, she answered. All of us. Together, they stepped into the light.